Hey everyone, Temporal here, and today we have a special guest. This is Thor, Contenders coach for Sheer Cold, and what we're here to talk about is, yes, some of his work with Sheer Cold, as well as EU Contenders in general, but the real thing that brought him to my attention and made me want to bring him online was his latest scouting piece on the Washington Justice, as well as his previous scouting piece. So, Thor, why don't you start by telling me a little bit about what you're doing with those? What's the idea behind these? You're calling them hit pieces, or are you trying to take down owl teams? Are you going to drive sheer cold to take down owl teams? Is this throwing the gauntlet? What are we doing?
No, like almost. So basically, what I'm trying to do with these hit pieces is I'm reviewing or analyzing these games and basically summarize them in the video like how I would practice with our team or with any team that wants me to bring basically these teams down. Like I'm thinking about okay, what are their weaknesses? But that's the special kind of twist behind this is that it's not just like saying okay what they're doing wrong. It's more like how can you actually like try to exploit this, and how I would especially like prepare with a potential our team to beat them in a tournament.
Perfect, perfect. So you're doing this as a not what they need to improve on type thing, though it does in some ways highlight that, but you're mostly doing this as a what are actionable, exploitable things that you could do. You're sort of showing your value in some ways as, hey, I know how to scout teams. And I'm sure you do lots of other things well too, but that's something that you can illustrate to the world. Cool, cool. That's really cool. So,
Exactly.
with that in mind, why don't we sort of pivot a little bit from there? We're definitely going to circle back to Al in general, but why don't you tell me about what because you know EU Contenders, and I'm not sure all of the audience knows that and knows, okay, how does that stack up? What would you say the strength differential is between EU Contenders and Owl? Do you feel like EU Contenders are stronger than Owl, nipping on their heels? Is like the strong couple teams are at that level, but not others? Where would you say that is right now, since you've probably got greater insight than most people into the scene there?
Yeah, exactly. Um, I mean, obviously, a lot of people will think immediately at the London Spitfire and the Paris Eternal, like two teams that picked up recently. A lot of EU teams, or like a lot of EU players, especially, I mean,
Sure.
British Hurricane is almost like a full roster to London Spitfire. Sadly, they don't perform as well. I still have like hopes. I mean, obviously, coming from a European
Okay.
contenders, I hope that they are doing better in this season. I mean, can only look us, make it look better. But now, like, I mean, to be realistic, like we have to say, like, of course, yes, the European region is not the strongest. It is, of course, Korean or Asian
Sure.
region there when it comes to the players, for like many reasons, of course, also structural reasons. Um, but still, I think we can hold our ground. I think it's nothing you have to like overlook. I think you have a lot of talent also there, um, especially when it comes to the DPS category, but also like all around the rows. And yeah, I mean, what's the difference between like you said, like contenders, European contenders and Owl? We have fortunately we had some scrims against some OG teams with sheer code,
Okay.
and like, not surprising, of course, they were like like they obviously like winning like the scrim bucks in this case, but we had
Sure.
like really some good matches, and obviously like was good practice for us and hopefully also for them. Um, and let's say like obviously our specialty, the European specialty, the Reinhardt Brawl or Rush, or however you want to like to call it, like holds strong, and I think we can definitely say that we are one of the most successful regions playing with this. And yeah, we got some maps that let's say like this. We got some maps here. Of course, it doesn't mean we have to win everything, but
Sure.
there's a difference for sure, as everybody expected. But it is a reasonable gap that you could expect from a tier 1 to tier 2 kind of level. It is not
Okay.
gigantic or something.
Are you
There,
guys,
there's a
when you guys get to scrim, and you can hold your cards close to the chest. Some of this is inside secrets, etc. If you aren't answering, that's fine. If you're not comfortable answering, that's fine. But when you guys get to scrim against owl teams, is that mostly happening? At least when I used to coach, what I would find is that would mostly happen on meta shifts, where the contenders teams have sort of been leading the way. They've been in that meta for a while, and because owls on a delay, either because their season is starting or because, hey, they are catching up because they were held to a previous patch. Is that mostly when those scrims are happening, or is this a thing where, hey, these are happening all the time, etc., because whenever your team is good enough, they want scrims against you? I found it was a little bit of both for those, but what has your experience been for either Sheer Cold or EU in general, if you're comfortable talking in a more general sense about that?
Yeah. No, like for us, it's definitely in the shifts. Like I mean, right now, for example, for a lot of for the teams, obviously that are not going to Hawaii, they are practicing or like the new patch is live right now in
Sure.
Overwatch. But obviously, we play the next tournament. So yeah, and we obviously also now got some scrum for the Overwatch League teams. I wouldn't say like we have had so much time to prepare for this patch in general, because obviously last week was also our Contenders
Yep.
final, so it's not like so much time. But yeah, like to confirm, like definitely confirm what you said there. Like we are practicing now, especially I guess they are trying things out. We are trying obviously our things out. We obviously try to also show ourselves. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Of course, we don't take it as a scrim. We take it as we want to perform as high
Of
as we
course.
can, as good as we can.
It's hard to
Of
talk
course,
your
our
players out of that when it's their.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I also can say like in last scrim or like last when we had the scrim, I was like, okay, guys, we want to really play like as a team, show our strengths, but of course here and there, like the players try to show themselves, also looking for some 101 takes there with some Overwatch League type of players to just show, oh look, I can beat you, which maybe is not really the right thing at sometimes, but I mean this is how things obviously work. Everybody wants to
And you do
show
need to
themselves.
nurture that drive a little. Once they start doing a lot, I
Exactly.
think. But yeah, you do want to nurture that drive. You would rather a team, I think, that wants that than a team that is like, oh well, these are just anybody. You want that
Yeah.
hunger. Is that
We,
okay?
we were we were definitely not scared of them. That's what I can say. Yeah.
Okay.
um, but yeah, to come back to your question. So yeah, I would definitely say like it's more about like showing different things. Also, I'm not obviously this is completely speculation that they say like we scrim against them. I guess also maybe they know they have that we are like obviously more a brawl heavy team, so I
Sure.
guess they're expecting this. This could be a reason. I have no idea. But of course of the others ways also like ping or like not ping related, but some players or some teams. I think they still had some players here and more like in this area. So from ping reason, it was just the thing that okay, it was better to script against us. Also like I guess from the daytime. So yeah, but a lot of things obviously come together there, and we're always happy to obviously take the scrim. I mean, it's amazing exposure for our players, and
Sure.
obviously good scrims, high quality scrims. So yeah.
And do you find that the EU teams mostly get to scrim against a variety of L teams, or is it mostly the teams that are closer to them for latency reasons? Like, do other teams go, hey, from an A, from China, etc., we're going to go take these scrims, or do they tend to keep it a little more? Most of the scrims come from the more local teams for latency reasons, or is it more, hey, no, we like that we can scrim you at different times? Because I know I always enjoyed that, where it's like, hey, we can scrim against EU to scrim in the mornings, and it's great because it's additional block options.
Yeah. Like we had some scrims that were like overseas, so we obviously then had some I mean not ping issues, but we obviously had high ping, but also like once recently that was more closer because of this reason, I guess. I think they even like wrote us like, hey, looking for a team from this region to because of ping related stuff, but yeah.
Okay, so let us in on the secret. Let us in on the secret here, Thor. Why does EU like its Rhine comps, its Brawl comps, its Rush comps so much? What happened? Like, didn't NA invent goats? How did EU become the embodiment of Brawly comps, etc.?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think obviously you mentioned codes, like we have to go back to this area because I mean I think the European region was like always really strong at goals when it especially came out.
Yep,
I was also not like that. I was coaching here and there some tier 3 teams, so I was also not really like so much in the team in the scene. But everybody always played goals, and especially when nowadays, like when there's a change, in meta, and brawl is viable. You know who plays it, like European plays it, and I think this comes obviously, I guess, from once of all from like kind of players are really comfortable playing these heroes. But
sure,
one piece I 100% I think is that in Europe we have a lot of more like player-led teams. Like especially if I look at the Asia regions, like we have, or like also
Hmm.
from just the culture, like how they are, like they have obviously coaches, like high respected coach. I think every team that has like really like two or three coaches that playing with them. Of course, also like the structure is way more clean, especially if, like from Contenders up to our. But especially here in Europe, I can say that with like I don't know, thinking about Raspberry Racers, also like the sheer code roster is also more a player-led team this year, and yeah, also like other teams like Exo Living, I would also say more like a player that team and things like this. So I feel like I'm not saying that because you're a player-led team, you cannot make any like more macro intense or like more strategy intense yeah playstyles or like compositions. But I feel like one of the advantages of having like this player-led teams is that you have more. I don't want to say control, but you know, obviously everybody just wants to is more like close to each other. You want to play like what you're good at, what you're strong at. You play for your own adventure, for your own strengths.
Okay.
And as I said before, Europeans like to have this Reinhardt playstyle. We have a lot of really good Reinhardts, which also obviously like recently also get promoted to ours. So I'm looking at Hardy, for example, but
Sure.
also like many more. So I think all of this coming together is, in my reason, in my explanation, that kind of the reason why, yeah, Europe just loves to play brawl.
Fair enough. So that does bring us to an interesting point, though, where you're talking about the difference of, hey, there's player-led teams and there's more org or coach-led teams, depending on how exactly they're structured. So have you worked with both? Do you have a preference having worked with both? Where do you come in on that debate? And it doesn't necessarily need to be a debate, like both can have their strengths, but do you have a preference and, you preferring one, maybe you throwing the gauntlet at the other, or it may be a case of, hey, they both work, but I do like what this brings versus the other. Do you have a preference?
Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say I have a preference for now. Like I'm actually in a when it comes to this topic in a kind of really cool scenario because last year or like last season, like
Mm-hmm.
cheer code when Gauntlet 2020, I mean it was a like org-led team with Spylo as a head coach still and me as assistant coach, and we had obviously a really good run. It was a really like fun time, good roster. It was a great season,
Sure.
and then we had to rebuild the team because players retired, and I mean
Yep.
this is how it is. And nowadays, like now, this team is definitely more like a player-led team for many reasons. And as you said, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I don't think it is a bad thing, for sure
Sure.
not. And has some just a different challenge. It has a different dynamic, especially also for me as a coach in this case. And like, do I like it? Do I not like it? I think both can work. Like
Okay.
no, it's more like before I was obviously more like giving, I guess. I mean, yeah, like I was more like giving the direction of like when it comes to strategy, when I talk with Spyler, of course, and of course we also, as always, like implement or like take the team's opinion and make sure that everybody's really comfortable.
Sure.
But as we know, it's more like the decision is more with us, and I also felt more responsible for it. And I think now with the team right now, it's kind of the opposite that they tell me what or like they are saying for themselves what they like to play,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm coming in and trying to like or try in my position like to fix or like to make sure that everything works smooth what they want to do and bring them together, obviously make sure that they're all on the same page. And
So
yeah,
you're
I
optimizing the pace that they set is effectively how you're thinking of it in this player led. Is that a fair summary of sort of what you've gone there, as opposed to you deciding what you thought was the best from the get go?
yeah, I think this would be I think it's correct to say it this way.
Okay.
um
Okay.
yeah.
So speaking of that, let's move into sheer cold a little more specifically here. And you guys did have a very successful last year. Like you guys did quite nicely. People weren't expecting you to do that as nicely as you did from what I expect, and that was a good showing. But then you had to do a little bit of a reload. You took a little bit of a reload. That's what I was not quite the word I was
Rebuild.
looking for, but you're reloading players and such. So close enough. Rebuild,
Exactly.
reload. Why not? So, what would you say it was like having to do that? Like, and maybe like you could give us a little bit of insight of what was your role in that as a coach, or maybe a little more like how did you drive that in some ways, or maybe things you
Mhm.
learned from it and might do differently now that you've gone through a stage like that. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We had a really, really good last season with like Gauntlet Place 4 and sad we kind of didn't break our magical place 4 finish. Like we always got place 4, not really higher.
Oof.
So,
Sure, sure.
but it is how it is. But no, and then yeah, like players retired and we had to like rebuild. And I also have to say like maybe to disappoint you there a little bit. I was actually not as active in this rebuild process myself. I also took some time for myself between
Sure.
the like in January and stuff like this, and yeah, like it was mostly, to be honest, like with Kran, like Kran up, our main tank, who
Hmm.
kind of gathered players around him, and we basically just offered him and said like, hey, like first of all, it was with also with Alex, our main off tank. He then later on decided to join now the SMC, which is completely fine.
Sure.
But yeah, this too, and like because of day two, kind of wanted to make rebuild a team. Obviously, with Alex still on our team, so it was kind of clear. Okay, we are building for Sheer Cold. Then Alex was leaving. We kind of said, okay, hey, Kron, we still believe in you. We would like to offer kind of you the Sheer Cold spot in this case and help you kind of obviously support you with all you need. And he then gathered around players. We obviously tried. I had tried to help as much as I could with scouting or like with building
Sure.
this team. But I also don't want to take his glories away. It's definitely him collecting this good players that we have right now.
Okay.
And yeah, then that was it. We had a team and we obviously started practicing and playing in contenders again.
Great. Great. Okay. So that sort of illustrates for us how it transitioned in some ways as well. You've answered multiple questions at once there. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's just get into then what does it we've sort of touched on this, but like just because, you and I know this, but the average person isn't, because the average person isn't a Contenders player, even though sometimes we get in that world, the average person is a viewer. What does a coach do for a team? What is your day-to-day like? Or what is the general coach's day-to-day like if yours is particularly different? What does that look like in Contenders?
Yeah. I always like to answer this question with just saying, my job is to make the players like giving the players all the resources they need so that to be like able to succeed or practice effectively.
Okay.
So basically I'm like my or like how I see my job is mostly making sure that we use the time that we have in scrims, also outside the scrims if necessary, um, to practice there as efficient as possible. So obviously that's not talk so much about this, general things. Let's
Sure.
get to the chase. So basically what I'm saying is I'm trying to kind of make sure that we always have, for example, a scrim goal. We always want to have something to improve on, and it has
Huge.
to be like I always like to have it, yeah, like as specific as possible, because then it's actually very easy to also like measure it and or like review afterwards. Okay, have we actually improved in this or not? And then of course not only having this like thinking about this one scrum, but obviously also thinking about the whole week. Okay, what's maybe could be, like a topic of this week, for example. We're trying to play a little bit more like the double bubble composition right
Hmm.
now and try to implement this a little bit. So obviously, what could be then some steps to go from like Monday to Friday. Okay, what do we start with? How do we kind of get there? How to get better and stuff like this. And then of course also having the more like in this case monthly schedule because we have obviously a tournament every month.
Yep.
So is there maybe something more fundamental that we maybe want to practice at the start of the month, where we don't not really sure what composition or what composition we will run in the tournament? So we practice a little bit more general things,
Sure.
and then obviously the closer we get there, the more specific, like the closer we get to the tournament, the more specific it gets. For example, last week we are talking then about rollouts on the different King of the Hill maps. Make sure that we practice those because, as we all know, first fights on King of the Hill are really important. And of course, like scouting formations, like I try to scout for the our contenders teams because I mean we are obviously fortunate that with all the scrims that we are doing mostly against other contenders teams, we of
Hmm.
course have a lot of information. So trying to collect those, making sure that we know the enemy style and obviously are ready to kind of adapt to this. And
So
yeah,
that really brings two questions to mind, and the first question I want to ask is going to be about that scouting. I think we're all probably in agreement that scouting is really important or can be quite important in OWL. We've seen insane levels of scouting happening. You're putting together hit pieces, and that's great. That's fantastic to see. I'm actually really excited that we're seeing a lot more content about OWL from qualified people like yourself these days. But at the Contenders level, do you feel like the mastery 3 for most teams is at such a level where really getting into the specifics of what a potential messes up is worth practicing towards? Or do you feel at the Contenders level that it's still a little more, hey, we want to generically know if they're going to play double bubble or brawl or a Zen ball comp, and we might want to know like a weakness or this, but we're not really going to go to punish the specific setup that they go do because that's sort of really focused practice time, like the return on investment there. Does that feel good? Is that something we see a lot in Contenders or no?
Yeah. Um, so of course, or as I expect, obviously I'm never our coach, so have no personal experience. But as I expect in Overwatch League, it is way more precise when it comes to scouting.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when I scout for an enemy team here, like in Contenders, we're not always trying to counter like one specific person, or like it's more about like a team structure. Okay, this team
Sure.
plays this way. How do we react to this way? I can't just assume, or like I expect, to be honest, also from also what I hear, that in Overwatch League team this goes middle more specific. That we actually say, okay, like this player likes to play like this particular style, really aggressive or defensive or however.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can, like make sure that we cannot counter him especially. Um, that is my what I assume in Overwatch League. And when it comes to Contenders, as I already said, it's more like the style. But of course, also for like a great example is for example Ex Oblivion. They loved, or like they played recently, or like not recently, also in the tournaments on the Route 66. They played a Symmetra Ashe strategy,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like every team kind of knew it, and every team had kind of a different way of like trying to counter it. But they
Sure.
still always, went really good with this style. And this is, for example, a good thing where I say, hey, like obviously this I'm scouting, I'm trying to able implement what where are we strong, like what are our strengths from sheer cold, and how can we kind of counter their strategy and trying to change as less as possible in our style.
Yep.
I think this is like really important when it comes, especially to adapting to the scouting formations. It's not always like picking the perfect counter composition, because if you just cannot really play it, then I mean, it doesn't really work. So yeah, like this for once, and then I mean, of the other side, of course, as I said at the start, every team kind of knows, generally speaking, how they're doing. Like, for example, SMC, they have Dennett as a Doomfist, and he's just a really good Doomfist, and everybody knows, okay, they're playing Brawl with Doomfist. They're just always doing it. They're playing it consistently. So we just
Sure.
know, okay, against him, we need to adapt this. But like, as I said, or as I said at the start, like it's more about okay, we know how he plays. Let's adapt as a team. But it is more central about we still play our game. It's not just, we don't want to like counter theirs. We want to play our game and adapt to their differences.
Sure, sure. No, I think that's really important, something you hit on there, which is, hey, you do want to be working on what you have specialized in. You very much want to be going, hey, we want to make the minimum adjustments possible to our style or to our play to still be able to beat them because that's what we've practiced. And I think that's really
Yeah.
important. So going,
Actually,
oh,
to,
go ahead.
to, to, to jump in here,
Sure.
um,
Correct
I
me.
watched
Don't let me
I
put
watched
words in your
no,
mouth.
no, like definitely, you always said is correct. But I actually listened to, or saw from Houston Outlaws. They always make, I think like every Overwatch League team, this like 10 minutes video where they go over like, okay, what happened last time, and like the coach also talk about the games, and they
Sure.
actually said exactly this, that in the most recent Houston Outlaws, you can just find it on YouTube video. They actually said that they were counting too much, or like they were changing too much, like their own play
Yep.
style against. I think it was against Dallas. I feel like, I'm not so sure, and that's why they kind of lost, because they were not going too far away, and they kind of half an hour before before the game started, they kind of swapped some compositions around and stuff like this, and yeah, I think this was a really good. It's a really good experience, or like example also, that we, and obviously everybody else also like knows this. Okay, like it's not only in Contender, or like it happens in Overwatch League too, that you don't want to swap around too much what you can do well. Um,
Sure.
as you said, adapt as in a minimum.
Okay. Okay. So now this is gonna bring us to what was your favorite, or what is your favorite meta to coach and why? Do you like really like it in this brawl? Would you wish that your teams got to play more poke? Like, do you have a favorite meta to coach, be that a macro level or a very specific comp? Like, have you had a favorite in all this?
Yeah, and you will laugh, because I don't
Uh-oh.
think I belong in Europe, but it is not Brawl. I actually hate Brawl when it
Sure.
comes to like this three different, let's say, like Brawl, Spam, and Dive. It's only
Right.
this three. I like the most the spam
Okay.
compositions.
Okay.
And as you said, like I'm not really like in the right place here in Europe,
I I
playing
get it,
that with
man.
spam.
I get
Yeah,
it.
but no, like I really love to have spam. I would say like a spam strategy is way more like macro depending because it depends on like like which angles you set up. Like it's way more about like how do you use the map and like how do you to set up and how do you position and how to make rotations or like specific rotations to push this and stuff like this. Brawl is of course in my opinion more like like micro heavy, especially when it comes to the mirror matchup. It's all about cooldown management and like the, like you have like the fights are so fast. Like to be honest, when I watch a scrim sometimes
Hmm.
and I mean, 12 players use like almost all the cooldowns in like a span of 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I can also not really see what's going on, but I'm just way more comfortable
And
seeing in the
and
spam here,
you're a
like zooming
professional
out.
coach. I just want to point out you almost can't see what's going on, and you're a professional coach. The average viewer is just like, what? What just
Yeah,
happened?
yeah,
Sorry.
just somebody died, and yeah. But yeah, like definitely, I love spam the most. It's I feel
Sure.
like I also have as a coach, I feel like I also have a most impact because I, for one, at least, I mean, obviously everybody will say this for myself, but I feel like really confident coaching spam, and I
Sure.
also feel like okay, I can understand uh the small things when it comes to your position really well. Hopefully, you can also translate this to my teams. But yeah, as we touched on before, just because I love spam, I obviously want to like I will not like force a team to play what I like. I
Sure.
take a look at my players, what are their strengths, and then we form a play style around like their strengths. And yeah, obviously
Okay.
whenever they say anything with spam, I say yeah, spam. I'm up for it. Let's try it.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Do you think there's like a basic? I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you think there's like a basic or moderate level tip that you could give to players to like understand spam better? Like maybe for their ladder games, maybe for their tier 3 scrims. Like, what's a basic thing about poke comps, spam comps that maybe is generally understood and maybe is not generally understood? But we don't need to get like super high level about exactly how you bait enemy sight lines, etc. But something moderate level here you got for people.
Yeah. Um, like I would always say like that you need to understand when you're playing a spam strategy, it is it is the angles that win you the fight and not kind of the damage that you have. Like if you think, I always like to bring up this example of think about you play I don't know a double shield composition and you have a bastion there. All 6 players standing together
Hmm.
behind like bastion behind the shield. You have like infinite amount of damage from this one angle.
Yep.
But like there's you have in the game in Overwatch you have natural cover, so it is not always the best thing that you just like put all of your resource, all of your like damage in this one spot because they can just then go around you and just hit you from multiple angles, and you only like even with double shield you only have 2 shields. It's so easy, or like it's not that hard to get an Overwatch like 3 different angles, especially also how the maps are designed.
Sure.
Um, so if you get shot from 3 different angles, even if you have like a bastion behind the shield, he cannot shoot everywhere at once. And even if he shoots somewhere, then the enemy team can just hide behind natural cover again. So yeah, like you have to just like try to understand that it is sometimes more important, or like it's in the spam strategy, in my opinion, it is more important to control the map and use different angles at your advantage compared to putting all of your baskets in one.
Okay.
Especially also like to add something up there. What I see a lot of times, or my opinion is is a wrong play in this is ball tracer composition. What you see a lot that the Ash and the Zenyatta, especially when you're playing really slowly and playing for angles, a lot of times they're just standing together and shooting over the same area. And I feel like this is one of the things where I say, hey, if you play already slow, if your tracer's already matching the enemy tracer, if you already kind of control your angles with the ball tracer and you're not looking for a dive, then use the space that you get and actually try to split your Ashe from the center because these are the 2 characters that have the most range damage. And I think this is way more efficient
Okay.
in this way.
So that's mostly, the Ash Zen comp there is mostly referring to kind of the late 2020 comp there. And just to pick at this a little bit
Yeah.
so that people understand is, well, in those situations, you're mostly talking about usually either a ball with a Sigma, sometimes a ball with a Diva got tried at the beginning of the year. Who would you then go if you're splitting them? Where would the Sigma go and where would the Mercy go? Is the Mercy going with the
Yeah.
Ash? Is the Sigma going with the Zen, the Ash? How would you usually divide that, or is that map dependent?
Um,
Or is it a third angle?
I
Fourth angle? No.
Yeah. Like of course, if you just like take what I'm saying, like you can also say, yeah, as you said, like okay, then I just take 6 angles. Yeah,
Perfect. Perfect. I
perfect. You
love
could,
it.
I,
Okay.
I guess you could do this, but of course, there we have the problem. Then you also have to think about like how safe are you to compare to much how much value you get. If you get 6 angles, but everybody can only shoot once because then they're dead, and it does not really like work. So,
Hey,
um,
I saw quad DPS. It was all about taking 6 angles. Okay.
okay, yeah, there were other different times, but yeah, like I think the a proven concept is that the Zenyatta goes with the Sigma and the Ashe goes with the Mercy, or like Drake, obviously depending on specifics.
Sure.
But in general, I would say like this setup, um, yeah. And then obviously the like if you're like that's what I like always how I see this composition also like also this hybrid composition that like this is a hybrid composition between like a dive style with the ball tracer and obviously like the more spam style. And if you decide as a team, hey, we want to play slow right now, that means that not only the 4 players in your backline play slow, but also that the whole team tries to help you playing the spam strategy. And that means spam strategy taking angles so that your tracer, your ball, as I said before, trying to match the enemy tracer ball. And this allows the Ash and the Mercy to split up from the Sigma and Zen, or like both of them. It just kind of allows them to kind of take some more space because, as you said correctly, or like like if we just like if we don't make space for our DPS, and if we're not like obviously I'm talking here sorry about the mirror matchup,
Sure.
not to get too confused here. If we're not allowing our Ash Mercy to get any space, then of course they just get dove and they die. So um, like also like for the question before, like what the fundamental thing is, I think it's so important that all 6 players have the same win condition in mind, um, and not as I feel like misunderstood a lot of times. Hey, we play ball tracer. Okay, ball tracer always dive, and you have a sand and the ash. Okay, they always play back, and you do nothing. So it's not like a 4-2 split. Of course, from the like you can see this really easily, but I feel like 6 players do the same thing, and we need to like understand that all of us have different jobs then in this 2 win conditions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So moving back to sheer cold here. You guys, if I remember correctly, you made your run, not quite as good as last year. You made your run, so you are going to have to take another shot in trials there to get back up in the current format. Is there anyone you're worried about down there? Is there a perhaps new team that you're hearing rumors of, someone else that you're in there, or should everyone just be terrified of you, shivering in their boots to go with our cold pun there? And it's just going to be an easy path right back out on top of trials. How are you guys feeling going in?
Yeah. Um, yeah, definitely we are really confident. To be honest, like with the trials, I would say like we have no problems. To be honest, like I'm
Happy to
pretty
hear it.
confident. My players, we are feeling pretty confident. Like and we will definitely could get to contenders again. There's no question asked. Um, Actually, you heard it here first. I can get some a little bit spice. I'm
Oh,
not allowed to talk about this like in detail, but there will be um, some addition, something extra coming to trials in NA and in EU. I cannot go more in details, but I'm curious when it will get announced. And yeah, sorry, I cannot go more, but I
it's
put
fine.
some rumors in there. But yeah, like I'm curious, like how this all will play out and how especially players will react to this. Like I'm also don't know any details, but there will definitely
Okay.
something additional happen in trials.
So
Um,
without pressing you for leaks, because we'll just avoid that. We'll pretend that we're not talking about that. But I appreciate you hinting there that it spices things up a little. Is there anyone on sheer cold that you feel is like on a bit of a hot streak right now, improving rapidly, playing really well, that would sort of be a player or two to keep an eye on your team right now, or would you say nope, they're just grinding it out, they're all doing their thing, and this is the standard level for them? If we went to like baseball by comparison, you see players, regularly get hot, and the team that wins is sort of the team that has the most hot streaking players at a time. Would you say that there's anything like that people should be keeping their eye on Trickle? Well, maybe they get cold. I mean, I don't know with these analogies.
yeah. Um, I mean, of course, all of my players are obviously amazing, really talented, all of them. I mean,
Sure.
what I am supposed to say, but it's actually true. Like I really also believe this, and I think you can also see this. Um, as you said, like of course we didn't like manage to make any tries, and I think like this is of course disappointing, but it's also like fine for us. I cannot say we didn't try it. Of course we did. We had a really good match against British Hurricane, like lost it 2-3 really really sadly.
Sure.
It was really close. But
Yeah, you
talk more about the player.
you guys are
Sorry.
clearly a Contenders team. We're not actually
Yeah.
worried about you being, oh, they failed in trials, but sorry, continue.
Yeah. No, like in going more like over the players, like I'm actually like also really happy like how the roster like turned out.
Hmm.
Because with Lucer obviously like he was in Shield Code, he still is in Shield, like and obviously kind of a veteran or like a Contenders veteran, he's playing with Kran. We have like like to bring a lot of experience to the boat. Combined this with like our DPS player, especially like William Ramone, our flex DPS player, like really young, really mechanically gifted. To be honest, also a little bit sometimes too eager with his plays, tries to like do too much for the team, let's say like this. But I mean that's how it is,
Sure.
and I feel like this is also like a good balance between this kind of situation where we have this veteran that like also like calm the team down. They have like clear plans, clear structure also. And then we have kind of the younger players obviously like with mechanically amazing, gifted and from it up. And of course like obviously not to mention also the other players with NKC being like just a solid diva player or like Jenny's solid off tank, which is kind of just so consistent, like and of course like Ansh, our boob god.
Hmm.
He loves to
Fun
go
to
for the
watch. Fun to
for the
watch.
Reddit plays, yeah,
Yep.
sometimes, and I mean he's really just really consistent. So, like again, as I said at the start, we're playing around our players' strengths,
Sure.
and we know Ant's plans, so we're going in. And of course, not to leave somebody out. I mean, asking, I guess, like also players or like generally speaking, I think the community like knows around him like just from like his incredible aim and also like his Widow plays. Sadly, Widow is not as much meta, but I mean he obviously can translate this mechanics also to other heroes like
Sure.
McCree, and he also shows it in Contenders. And I think if I like to come back to your question, if I would say like who's on hot street, I mean asking is nasty. Like wow, like
Is that a
this
hot
is how I
streak, or
pick
is that just
McCree.
asking being asking? I mean, I've seen that.
No, like I think like this. Like he hits shots, man. He hits shots,
He
and
does.
this shots help us like to also like turn our finds around. We are not supposed to win. So it's crazy. And obviously this is exactly what you want to have also in your team, that this clutch potential. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's bring it back to Owl at this point, and specifically, I want to talk about your scouting report. So your latest scouting report, it's linked in the description below. If people haven't seen it, I definitely recommend they go take a look after watching this video. That's fantastic. It'll give you more context for what we're then going to be talking about here. But it's also just interesting to see, like, oh, look at the mistakes that these Owl teams, that these amazing players are making. And it looks like the big, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like your biggest takeaway from the latest scouting video on the Washington Justice, which you would look to use to exploit the most, to punish hardest, is that their backline doesn't necessarily rotate well when it gets pressure put onto it, that it goes ahead and splits. Is that a fair summation of what your takeaway is? And can you give us a little more of a general background of how you might exploit that if you were driving one of their opponents this week?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm definitely correct on this one. I think this is like a major takeaway. I think yeah, like what I saw a lot, or I mean, what I obviously like after like scouting multiple matches, I realized that Washington Justice loves to play aggressive, especially with the main tank. They love to put the pressure on the enemy teams, and I think they're also really good in this. But with this style, with this kind of setup, they also try maybe sometimes to actually avoid their own mistakes, or like trying to cover their own mistakes, which is definitely, in my opinion, the backline. Like, I mean, also like obviously show
I
some
feel like that's
examples
every
there.
team a little bit, but sorry, continue.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, then yeah, also trying to show some examples there where like rotations are like just sloppy. The when they get actually dove, or when there's like like more pressure on there, like they have to kite it out, something like this. They are just not synchronized in the way of like where they retreat. They sometimes get really easily split in the different directions. And obviously, I mean, we know like double bubble, the desire, the break, and the honor, they have to stay together to survive and obviously peer for each other. And I saw a lot that just one Winston or like opposite or so
let,
one
let
aggressive
me
team
interrupt for a bit
goes
because I
more.
don't
Yeah,
necessarily disagree, but I want to play devil's advocate mostly so you can show your
sure.
thinking here. Like, well, okay, you're saying that they should stay together, this back line, but isn't holding angles good? Didn't you just say that, Thor? If the Winston's coming in, wouldn't be able to, splitting in different directions, so you can shoot him in different sides, so that he's like pushing into angles is hard. Plus, you've got the advantage of his Tesla cannon can't cleave multiple people if he's split on angles. Why would it be bad that they're getting split? Go ahead.
Yeah. I can give you just the default answer. I mean, Winston bubble is a shield. Sorry, Winston's shield is a bubble, so it doesn't matter from which side you shoot him. He will always be protected this way. But yeah, like obviously to go more like into
Sure.
more like serious approach there. Um, I would say like yes, in theory, if you just take this one aspect into account of making the most amount of damage, I guess you're correct. But I mean, this is obviously not all it counts. Like it's all about just being safe, being like um so surviving actually this. And I mean, with the Ana, the Break and the Desire, if they're not split together, then Winston has an easy time to just cut the LOS, isolate them, and then you cannot really peer for each other anymore. Like the only thing that can do is like big armor pack, and that's it. So or like obviously Desire bubbles, but obviously the most important like Ana healing, Ana
Mm-hmm.
nades to peel
Mm-hmm.
does not work, and especially also like recently with or like a lot of teams played at a McCree there. So like
Mm-hmm.
this four-man squad being together, I mean the Winston has to be really really careful. But if one of those is exposed, as coming back to the Washington Justice, where I feel like this is easily
Sure.
happening, where we put pressure, then you can just like isolate this target, and then with a Winston, with a Tracer, maybe a Sombra Tracer, depending on what you play, or Echo Tracer, you can just like kill this target really quickly and even get out if you feel like, hey, like I really cannot stay here. I just got out again. You have the mobility, or you just keep going. So
Okay.
yeah, that's why I think like it's more about the surviving this case, playing around your Zaya, playing around your um, your high charge energy and trying to win the kind of the longer fights with this than taking angles. The point in taking angles in this moment.
Sure. Sure. No, and obviously I'm on the same page. The amount of peel that gets blocked by the Winston bubble is absolutely huge. But that makes sense. So then, if you were looking to exploit this, is there anything more you'd be like, this is specifically how we want to train to exploit it, or this is specifically what we're gonna do to make them split like that, or is it just, hey, a stiff wind in their direction will make them split?
Mm. Um, I mean, of course, it will not be just that easy.
Sure.
I
Sure.
also understand this, but there's of course we come perfect. We come back to the thing we said at the start, like minimal adjustments to try to still have your own strength
Yep.
in there, but obviously trying to avoid exploit like their mistakes. So for example, like if you're playing already a really like aggressive style of its own, or like if you're playing compositions where it's more like Sombra Tracer instead of like the McCree version, which is obviously more brawly, more about sustain than the Sombra Tracer version. I think this would be a great adaptation that you say, hey, we are confident of playing like like a Sombra Tracer or like a Sombra Echo instead of the McCree, and we know that if we go first, if we put that pressure on first
Mm-hmm.
and don't let them really like set up on this positions where they want to, then I think this is something we can exploit. And yeah, but when it comes to practicing, of course, like we just want to like have a higher tempo, and I would say especially practicing in the scrims, going okay, like I would often go so far and say. Like yeah, I have to be a little bit careful that nobody like twists my words around here, but I would
Sure.
say it is
Clip it,
not as
guys. Get ready to
important.
clip it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it is. I think it's not as important to have like always like the perfect execution. I think it's more important, especially against, in my opinion, against Russian justice, to kind of be first and put pressure on first, making sure that okay, they're playing like our game, then
Okay.
always like executing it perfectly. Because just having this pressure on and first makes them they will do mistakes, and then you need to be quick on punishing exactly these mistakes. So I wouldn't expect to
So
always like go in and make the perfect dive, but then reacting fast to what happens afterwards.
So it's a go first, and teams kind of like to go first because it does help hide mistakes, but make an intent to go first, and then you're ready for them to make this specific mistake. So you expect your follow up reaction to punish it to be that much faster. Is that a fair summary of what you're going for here?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
so.
Okay, great. Um, then let's move out more generally in Overwatch League. Do you feel like there's something that either Overwatch League coaches generally get wrong in the league, or that maybe orgs are getting wrong? Like, is there something where if you were in there with real authority that you'd be like, this is what we're going to do and this is going to be amazing? And if you're going, yes, of course I have those thoughts, Temporal, but I'm not going to share them because I don't want them to get done before I get there and I want to drive my team to success, that's fine. But is there any criticism? Can we throw rocks at the league from the outside for now until we've got you as the inside man?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, yeah, like I have my thoughts about this.
Sure.
I think one of the things I obviously also because of the condition that I'm in Contenders, but I would definitely say like I think it's really beneficial from just not thinking about the financial phase, but really just thinking of a competitive way, even for Overwatch League teams to put having an academy team or having a team that you can practice with for a special for really like special strategies. I think is really
Mm-hmm.
beneficial. So thinking about like London Spitfires with the British Hurricane, that was a really good academy team. I'm pretty sure they had a lot of like also internal scrims to just play against them and like
Sure.
make them like say, hey, Hurricane, like play maybe like this type of composition so we can practice like our new style against them or stuff like this, or we can practice stuff. So I think this is something where obviously yes, I'm playing on Contenders, so of course I would love more
Yes.
attention to the Contender scene, but also taking this aside, I think this is something where our teams lack. On the other side, again, of course, it's a financial more like I think more a financial question than a more like a strategic or like competitive point on view on this side,
So
sadly. But yeah.
would you view that though as they should all have their own academy teams to practice against? Would you view that as maybe there should be one or two sort of quote unquote practice teams that we might not even know exist, that they're sort of maybe as a joint venture funding just so that they have teams to play against that they sort of don't have to then compete against but are at the appropriate level? Is it more of a hey, just the best contenders team or the best two contenders teams can be things that we practice against? How do you view that sort of?
Mm. Um, no, I think definitely like having a academy team, like to practice against, I think is
Mm-hmm.
valuable. On the other side, of course, we can also just opt out and say, hey, we don't make a team our own. We just like take the already existing contenders teams and
Right.
practice against them, which obviously is happening. Like
Mm-hmm.
like we also know it from like the shock when they went to the finals last year. They practiced against the best like Asian teams there. They had like a really good run or like a really good practice partner in this case. So I mean, obviously also like here Sheer Cold, like when we have to practice, so it is
There,
happening. Um,
there was a little
but
difference there though,
yeah.
because you're saying like you want to be able to make the team that you're practicing against sort of run comps that you want to practice against. At least I thought that's
Hmm.
what I heard. And you're not
Yeah.
necessarily going to be able to do that if you're playing against Sheer Cold, for example. I mean, maybe, but my thought is Sheer Cold is probably going to go, we have our own tournament. We want to practice the stuff that we need to practice. Is that fair? Like that's sort of
Yeah.
the dog's always been chasing its tail that way in scrims. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like definitely, we like, and this is also like as correctly as you said. Like obviously, we are practicing our own thing. Of course, they can like ask and say like, hey, okay, we are helping you out a little bit, but mostly it's like we are practicing for our tournaments and they practice for theirs.
Sure.
And but yeah, I think completely correct what you said. That's one of the main reasons why I would say like, hey, I think for like the internal scrims of like, hey, saying like you have to play you play this composition for us, like an Overwatch League team goes to the academy team and says, hey, can you play this composition, this exact style against us, so we can get better. And I think this is like one of the things I would definitely say like, hey, is something where Overwatch League can get better at.
Okay.
um
Okay.
yeah.
Um, I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover here. So I'm going to give you a chance to, cover anything you think we missed or you think people should like really know about either you, Sheer Cold, your hit pieces on Al. Really, I'll give you a chance to sort of take the floor undirected for a second here. But do you mind if I take a minute to look at chat and see if we have any interesting questions from you for there?
No, of course. I have
Okay.
I think we covered a lot of topics, so I didn't have anything specific. um but sure, any questions?
Okay. Well, chat, get those questions in there. I do see we have one here, but if you have more, make sure you get them in there. In the meantime, if you guys are enjoying this type of content, please do like and subscribe. That helps out a bit. And definitely be sure to check out Thor's scouting report as well as his Twitter and YouTube channel in general, which are both, or which all three of, are in the description down below there. So from chat, I see we have a question of which L team would you want to be picked up by if you had the choice? So do you have a favorite, or do you maybe not want to say anything because you don't want to scare others off?
No, I would definitely say like I have a favorite, like hometown favorite, I would almost say.
Sure.
I really like the London Spitfire. Not from the like really just from the organization point, you know, like I don't even mind like where they're on the team on the league right now,
Hmm.
but yeah, like I really just feel the environment where it comes to like you know like good taking this home bias away. I mean, we all know like Shock is an amazing environment from obviously what I hear. It's not, you know, like from what everybody kind of sees how they are presenting themselves, and
Sure.
also with Krusty, the big brain
The
as a coach.
genius somewhere hiding. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I really love, I would, you know, to be honest, I really would love to just be there, like I don't know, for a week and just play their assistant coach just to see how they are doing things. And to be honest, maybe it's also like a little bit of magic in my eyes that I feel like, oh, they're doing so many different. I don't even think they do like something so special, but it's just like I guess the consistency and how they do it. So I'm really would be really excited to like see like the details, the differences there between like for example a contenders team like Sheer Cold and an Owl team. Of course, like I have my some insights here and there, but this would be like obviously amazing
Sure.
to see what they're doing. So yeah,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I would still say it's the London Spitfires.
London Spitfire, and then hey, if you can get like a week, if at Shock, or
Yeah,
maybe you take Shock as a second choice. Shock is his second choice, guys.
Chalk is
That's
the
the.
second choice. Yeah, they have to step it up a little bit.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, there
come
we
on.
go. Okay. Okay. I'm not seeing anything else from the chat. That's not too surprising. We covered quite a bit here. So if you don't have anything else here, I think we can bring it to a close. But if you have any final thoughts, anything you want to say, or anything you think we should know, please, by all means, let us know.
No, I have. I think, like I said, we've covered so much. Like, I really have like nothing more to say. I can just say like also like thank you especially for the interview, and you know, like, of course, Temporo also like a big brain from on OH League team, so OH League scene. So I really love your content. I hope that you continue doing this. And yeah, thanks for having me, basically.
Thanks, I really appreciate that, Thor. And obviously, we've got lots of good stuff here. I look forward to seeing more of your content as well. So this is going to be
Yeah.
great. Okay, guys, I'm going to close it out here.